So for step 14, attaching the rear arms, we're going to take the axle that we built in the previous step and attach the universal joint, but we're also going to put on these suspension pieces right here and attach that all to the axle. And you can see that we're also placing these ball connectors on the other side, which are actually getting attached by these screws, because when we put it onto the chassis, they'll attach to something on the chassis itself. So I've pulled everything together. We've got our screws, the grub screw, the ball connector nuts, and then you've got those interesting, like completely round silver balls, basically. Kind of interesting. And then we've got our universal joint here. And then of course over here I've pulled together those suspension arms themselves. So I think what we'll do is we'll probably work on this side first and then just finish this side up, and then we'll put the universal joint on. So I'll set this up and let's put this together. So before we get started on this step, I'm doing this as an insert because I can't believe it, but I screwed this up, and I just had a conversation with Adam at Adam's Playground about this because it happens. But one of the things I wanted to show you right off the bat was these two little notches, because it's showing you note sides. So these two little bits need to be facing out. In other words, away from the chassis. So when you're putting this together, these need to be facing up. And I was going to do that when I do my initial sort of overview of the step before we get started, and I forgot. And because I forgot, I didn't have this sitting the right way, which I had intended doing, just so I could show you that we need to flip it over and make sure that these notches are facing up. I didn't do that. So I've built this entire step the other way as we go forward. So I just need you to know that as you're building this, you need to make sure those notches are facing up. Now, when it comes to placing it into the chassis, I fixed it pretty easily. So to show you, if for some reason you did build this wrong and you put these notches below, in other words, if you look up above, the axle and differential are on this side and it should be over here. The easy thing is, if you undo this screw on either side, there is enough room that you can actually flip this over, because once you undo this screw, it's going to undo the bottom. So this is all going to be loose, and you're going to be able to flip the axle around and then reattach it on either side, which is what I had to do. So going through this step, just note the placement needs to be that these two notches that you see are facing out, away from the chassis. So in this build that you're going to see as we go through this, I did it the wrong way. So just note, just turn the axle around. Everything about the step is identical, but just make sure that those are facing up when you're attaching these parts. So I think the first thing that we'll do is let's get the balls into those suspension pieces. And you can see here, they just want you to use a pair of pliers and snap them in. So if you see here, what I've noticed is on one side, it's got like this larger round area around each hole versus not showing that rounded piece. I don't know if I'm explaining that right. See how there's almost like a border around each? It's from that side that is the place that you want to get these in from. So if we were to put that just like that and grab our pliers, make sure that is correct, and pop that in. There we go. So now you can see that the ball is sitting there. It's in, it will move around, and we've got it in the right place so that the hole is accessible. So same idea with the other side. We're going to grab another one, put that in there, and we'll snap that in place. There we go. And of course, again, it moves around freely inside there. So that's there. So let's grab the other side. Again, the bordered side I find that's going to be easier to do. Grab your pliers, stick it in. It's not quite in. There we go, it's in. And the last one, put that in there. Ah. And there we go. So now we've got all 4 of those balls inside those suspension pieces. So now, if we were to work on this side first, we're going to grab our axle from the previous step, and you can see it says note sides. So in other words, these 2 notches on the axle need to be facing out. So if we grab this piece right here, you can see that we've got this big screw, which is going to go into the hole there. So you can see we've got full mobility there, but it's going into the hole, then into the ball that we just installed in there, which we've actually already done. Then there's a washer, so we'll grab the washer, and then it's going to go into the suspension right there. And on the other side, you can see it's a ball connector, the one that's got the hex end to it. And we're going to attach that on the other side. There we go, just like that. Now I think I can just use the box wrench to finish this off. Actually, we'll have to use the screwdriver as well, but let's see how this works. We'll have to do it both ways. So, use the hex wrench on that side and the screwdriver on the other. And there we go. So you can see you've still got full mobility, because once this attaches to the chassis, it's going to need to be able to move left and right, up, down. So there we go. So there's one side done. So let's put the other side together. So again, we're going to grab our suspension piece. We're going to grab our screw, take it down through the ball. We've got our washer, stick that on under the ball, and we're going to take our axle, put that on top, turn it over, grab our connector, or ball connector, I guess. I'm just spinning that on here. Now we're going to grab our box wrench, and we're going to grab our screwdriver and screw this in. And there we go. So based on that picture, we've got that now just like that. So the last thing that we have to do in this step is put on our universal joint. So you can see that we've got this grub screw, which I will attach first into the universal joint. just like that. And now we're going to slide this onto, and you can see we want to have this onto the flat spot right there. And it's showing you in this picture here that you're pretty much taking it past the end. So you can see that we need this onto the flat, but it's showing that it's actually going over the end, right? Just a little bit over. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to take this and slide it over to where I think it's approximately where it should be. And I'll start screwing it down. I want to see if it's actually sitting on the flat. It's not yet. So let's, oh, there we go. So if I take this further across to where they're suggesting, start tightening it down. Yep. So now that I know that that's correct, I'm now going to really start to tighten it. So there we go. There's our universal joint in place, and it feels pretty smooth. It's working fine. So that is step 14. So we finished that. So now we can move on to step 15, which is going to be attaching the rear axle to the chassis.